Alright, alright. Alright. Back to Tennessee. I got houses on top of houses. Got cars on top of cars. I don't think those are actually the lyrics to Third Coast by Tizo Touchdown, but pretty darn close. So, mother trucking, so you're probably looking at the layout a little bit different. You can see my forehead now. At some point, Alexis is gonna walk by. She's like, your camera's on. Why is your so I had to like tell her the camera's on, and she like moved away. But yeah, so the camera's on. I don't know. Like, I wanted to. I like the aspect of just the rain in the background because I think that's super dope. I do have to like slowly start turning down the rain because I watched the second one and that one had way too much like rain noise and you couldn't really hear me. But I was also fiddling a lot with my mic because I have a Samsung is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, Samsung Q9 Q9U, and I broke it. I don't know how I broke it, but I broke it. So I've been using this like lavalier, like wired lavalier mic that I bought, and it's actually, it's really great. It's the only mic that I've used this year to record my voices. When I did have it, I just got it back because it was in storage while we were moving. So I finally started using it, but then I clipped it to my neck, and I didn't even clip it to my neck. I just put it in my hoodie, so it was like mad. It was mad muffled, right? And I also like tried to like tuck it into my hoodie, and it would fall sometimes, and I wouldn't realize. It was essentially just a mess because I wasn't it wasn't consistent. It wasn't in one spot. It was just very inconsistent. But now I have I put the lavalier mic inside that Samsung microphone, like just inside it, and I'm essentially just using the $200 Samsung microphone to hold this like $20 mic. So it's the most ridiculous and like asinine thing I've done in the past week, but it works. Like this sounds fine to me. It works. So I was thinking that since I'm like recording these and I have a little bit more time, instead of like editing the video, I could get rid of the ums, but then I thought about it and I was like, whole purpose is to practice and to showcase that people speak like this is how people generally speak when they aren't putting it on script. That when you watch like a YouTube video, 90% of the time you're watching a script. If it's a really good YouTube video, there's probably a script written for it and they're doing an over whatever, or they did like a lot of takes to get that shot done, but it's still something that is scripted. And there are a lot of interviews with like Steve Jobs or Waj, or there's interviews with Pablo Picasso, there's interviews with Carl Jung. There's all these interviews of these wonderful people, and they're very human, right? When they speak, they have that traditional they have that everyone that stutter, that thought process is being invoked in their mind. Like you can see them spinning, and to me, that always felt more. It just felt more human than the scripts. So I am writing a script. I'm gonna try it out. I'm gonna attempt it. It probably would behoove me and make it more marketable to at least like outline this, right? To like outline and just have like a point of reference of what I want to talk about for this specific thing. But I never do. I never have an outline for these videos, and now I'm exploring writing a script. I'm like 2 pages in to writing my first script, first YouTube video, and I'm gonna like take my time. I'm gonna do edits, and I'm gonna like find stock images and stock videos. I'm gonna do the whole 9 yards, put my own spin to it, and see how it comes out. See how long it takes me for that entire process, and from there, I once I like figure out how long it takes me to do something, then I can kind of like plan out like, okay, I can probably do this like every 2 weeks, or I can do this once a month. Because right now in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this every week. But even recording, me writing that one page, it takes like 30 minutes. That I mean, at most, I used to, but like 2 days ago, before I figured out that you can screen capture individual windows essentially. I was just like screen capturing the whole computer. So I would have to like edit every time I like needed to Google something or whatever the case is. But now, if there's like a pause, then you know like, okay, he's probably Googling something. So for like the main story that the book that we're working on, I want it to, I really want it to be like an American novel, and that probably sounds really weird, but the goal is to eventually make it into the school systems, right? And to make it into the like curated reading for teachers. I want my book at the end, like once I'm dead, once I'm long gone. Because I don't plan on finishing this initial book. I don't think this initial book is going to be completed for another. I started 2 days ago. I've been thinking about it for 4 years. My timeline that I gave myself 4 years ago was at around 10 years per book. That's, with the associated research, that's with the associated learning curve, and that's me expecting myself to become way faster as the years go by and actually writing. So a lot of the slower process is like right now. The slowest that'll ever be is in this moment, right? Like this should be the slowest anyway, with regards to getting my ideas on paper, moving, progressing, and all that. But of course, you'll hear people like, again, George R. R. Martin, who has, you know, a writer's block because they didn't expect to expand, or whatever the case was. Maybe the book itself got bigger than them. Maybe they wanted to, finalize the book after 3 books, and it just got so popular and got so big that he had to just keep expanding and keep going and make it grander and bigger. So that's called scope creep. So if you start working in project management or work in a corporate setting, even in the public setting, which is like a government job, a federal job, state job, whatever the case is, it's unescapable that there's going to be a project. Even if you're not like in a department that handles projects, there's always going to be projects for every single, department, for every single section of like any company. There's always like something that people are doing. If they're not doing something, then you kind of like remiss on them, like, what is your purpose? What are you doing here, right? So when you start handling projects, you're usually going to get like a project manager, unless you're yourself as a project manager, or if you're like a smaller company or a smaller business, you become the project manager. Even if you don't label yourself that, you are managing whatever that project is, because you're a smaller company, you're a smaller individual that is, handling things by themselves, whatever the case is, smaller corporation. So with project management, it's all about figuring out, this is the scope. This is how much we're allowed to deviate from the scope. This is our timeline. This is everyone's initial like there's a lot of things that go into project management, and it usually all boils down to how much time do we have and what do we need to accomplish in that time. And then from there, you figure out, okay, we can expedite it if we have more money, or we can take our time and we'll spend less money. So but the initial thought process is, how much time do we have and what do we need to accomplish within that time? Because once you have those two very key information, you can kind of start allocating whether, okay, this is gonna make us deficient or whatever with our scope, with our timeline. We need to expedite this, and we need to put more of our resources in this. So with regard to like writing a book, that could mean I have a scope. I know the ending of my book, and then the in between of that ending, and I have a timeline of when I want this to be accomplished. I want to write this book in 1 year. This is what I want the story beats to be. But then once you start writing and you're like planning it all, you can like allocate as much time as you want when you're like planning. You can say that, okay, it's I have a year to write it. I want it to be 20 chapters. I want it to hit these specific story beats. And what you're trying to figure out is like, okay, what do I need to do to get from this story beat to this story beat? What, not me, but what does the character need to do to get from this story beat to this story beat, right? And you could be flowing in your head like, okay, they need to do this, 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 and this, and you like allocate the time properly. But then sometimes you'll get to a roadblock where you thought like, yeah, this is gonna be way fast. But then as you're writing it, you start realizing, oh, this doesn't make sense for my character. Oh, this doesn't make sense for the situation. No one has the powers or the capabilities to overcome this adversity that I just gave them, right? Or this, whatever the case is, your time or your progress could be like hindered. So when things like that happen, of course you have to like add to your timeline and keep going, or you have to increase your scope. And if you're increasing your scope and you're not increasing your timeline, then you're increasing the work that you're doing. Maybe there's not enough time in the day to do that work. So you either have to outsource it or you need to with money, which, compromises your creative integrity just because someone else could be writing it, right? Like you don't want someone else to write your book because these are your ideas, unless, you just got that big and you don't really care about the story itself and you just want the money. Like that's a whole different topic. But when that creep comes up and it's not planned for, because you can't plan for everything, then you need to make the decision of, am I extending time or am I decreasing scope? If I decrease scope, what is being affected? If that thing's being affected, how much time am I going to waste rewriting or fixing what doesn't work now because of decreasing the scope, right? So no matter what you do, you're going to have these things called a trade-off. And most of the time when an artist or, a corporation has a trade-off and they don't want to spend more money or whatever the case is, it just boils down to how much time can we extend this by? What are you guys comfortable with an extension, right? That's usually the first thing that people ask for, because no one really wants to ask for money. But money and time are the same exact thing. It's just like, how are you packaging that request? So for someone like George R. R. Martin, kind of circling back to the topic, when this is all, of course, speculation, this is just kind of to like integrate into the story of what happens when you don't plan, right? You don't assess these things properly, is that, I'm just assuming that his story, that he had somewhat of a rough outline for his story, and I'm sure he still does. But then as it got bigger, instead of what he's doing now, even though I'm sure his fans are like, yeah, he already took so much time writing all the other books, blah, blah, blah. But you got to understand that in his mind, he had to keep saying extend the time because I don't want to mess with the scope, right? Or I want to mess with the scope, so extend the time because I know that that the scope has increased, so I need to extend the time, the deadline. And he's always seemingly has chosen to keep increasing his scope while increasing his deadline, so he doesn't have to backtrack or kind of retcon anything that he wrote in the previous stuff, right? So instead of just like having an unsatisfying, because that's how you get unsatisfying ending, is how you get unsatisfying middles, when you start, hemorrhaging that time, hemorrhaging that availability, and you don't want to go against people's expectations of when things are supposed to drop, whatever the case is. That's when the bad things start happening, of you changing up your plan. Change is fine, change is good, but when you're under the barrel of you need to release this in the next week or whatever the case is, it just makes your writing, and really not just writing, this is like in general, this just makes your overall process and overall configuration of whatever you're doing, it just gets muddled and it gets changed, and that's not going to be the same exact thing that you were doing prior. And that means that when things change, it's not going to be the same exact expectation that your customers are going to have. That's why if you watch any of my streams, I usually play for like a few hours, 3 or 4 hours, but in those 4 hours there's 10 to 20 minute snippets of me like talking about random stuff that just pop up in my head. And that's one of those topics that did pop up in my head on. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, if you watch my streams, one of the things that I like harp on is communication. Like with the recent Mr. Beast scandal, with the Ava Tyson thingy scandal, there's so many scandals to keep up with, right? And I really don't want to keep up with all of them. But with what I find with most of these scandals is that people just really aren't communicating their thought process or their plans. I don't know if that's like being afraid of the backlash of your plans, or you don't want your audience to figure out whatever you're trying to hide. I know like one of the guy Dog Pack, one of his like allegations is that they oh look, there's mommy. She's like, you're doing what? You're recording? It's so funny. And she like gets up and then she like sits right next to me instead of just like you can't even see her in the chair. So she like stays she stays in the room, but then she like goes next to me in the couch next, because there's a couch next to me. There's a couch behind me. She decides to like lay on the couch next to me. I was just cracking up. I was like, what are you doing? Just sit back there. Just wanted to let you know. But anyway, Dogpack alleged that what did he allege? That the dude was like doing illegal lotteries and he was like faking some of his stunts in his videos. And I feel like it needs to be clear that we have surpassed the growth of YouTube, or the beginning of YouTube, where everything was as real, as authentic as it could be. But then once people start figuring out that you can fake pranks and get hella views, I feel like this all started with fake pranks. And you can get like hella views, right? It was over. It was game over. YouTube from that point on, especially when production value had to start increasing for whatever reason, it's just what people enjoy because of television, that YouTube had to essentially, to be popular, or at least once you get big enough, not even necessarily to be popular, because there's so many people that are popular or getting popular that don't have TV quality production. But once you get to a certain level in YouTube, it's almost expected that, hey, you're making a lot of money, put that money into YouTube, increase your internet, increase your increase your processing, get a new computer, do better edits, hire an editor, have better production, have better lighting, all this like things that you just weren't really planning on. But now that you're getting money from YouTube, or you've gotten big on YouTube, people have certain expectations of you. Once you have zero followers or zero subscribers, you have 1,000 subscribers, you have 10,000, you have 100,000, you have 1,000,000, you have 100,000,000. Each one of those layers, everyone has different expectations for you, and it's never communicated between the two parties, which is like you and your viewers. But it's like an overall arcing, hidden, like hidden rule in YouTube, that once you get to a certain point, people expect you to put back into your, into whatever you're doing. But I feel like a lot of people's YouTube videos don't necessarily need to scale up. There's some people that cook just in their kitchen, and unless they wanted to renovate their kitchen, I don't see why that individual should scale up. Do they really? If they needed like a new burner and they wanted to get a new burner, understandable. If they wanted new lights in their house and they needed to get new lights, understandable. But when people are like expecting like, oh, you have 1,000,000 subscribers and you're still shooting videos out of your phone, the lighting is still bad, you're still using like a wireless lavalier as your microphone, blah blah blah, like, why aren't you more scaled up? And it's like, well, let's not forget that this is my home. Right? This is not a Hollywood studio production company. This is not this is not Mr. Beast's warehouse. Like, you're more than likely in someone's kitchen, you're in someone's garage, you're in someone's living room, and there's so much expectations. These everyday people, once they start getting some clout or some money, or whatever the case is, some followers that they need to upkeep, it's like another version of scope creep, an lifestyle creep, In this version, I'm losing the train of thought there, but it's, to me, those things need to not be unsaid rules. Those need to be stated, right? I feel like if you yourself want to remain the same and to do what you want to do, and people like what you're doing, I think you should, state that for the people, because you're already stating it to the people that love your stuff, right? By doing the same exact thing. But you need to look on the other side of that also, which are your naysayers. You need to address them, and you need to be able to state, like, confidently, like, hey, I understand that you would like to see a better production value, and I'm not going to apologize for how I produce or create my content. I just hope that you find someone that gives you all the things that you're looking for and reminds you of, of this channel, that this, whatever this channel is doing, I hope you find someone that does the same thing with better production value, so you can enjoy it more for some reason, right? And I think that needs to be stated from time to time. It's because the thing about, like, negative, like I said, when you're doing something positive, which is like you're remaining true to your initial audience or your initial, like, inception of your plan for YouTube, whatever you're doing consistently, and you're doing the same, and you're not really, like, changing up, maybe, like, you're tweaking from time to time, that is, again, an unsaid thing where, like, yeah, you're agreeing with your base, and you're letting them know, like, hey, I'm not changing it up because I know you guys like this. That's, like, an unsaid thing, even though I feel like it should be stated from time to time, especially when you're doing, like, a thank you for 1,000 subscribers, thank you for 2,000, whatever, those thank you videos. Like, just go ahead and state it in there, like, hey, yeah, you know what, we've grown to 100,000 people. I just want you guys know, there's gonna be some changes coming, or there's not gonna be any changes. Like, this is still what's happening. It's like that constant communication that people really appreciate. But then on the other side of that coin, like I mentioned earlier, is that your naysayers, you need to address them also, and it's important to address them because those guys will, they will, what's it called? They will interact with your other subscribers or the other members of your community, and there's a chance that they could get them on their side, on the hating side, and say, like, man, you're stale. You're stale, and you've been doing the same shit over and over again, and I wish you did something more. Because this information or this, like, question would potentially not have ever been in anyone's head that follows you, but then they read it in the comments, and you've never addressed it, and they're seeing it over and over and over and over and over again. It's not like a one-time thing. One or two people saying the same thing, whatever. But then when you have, like, a good portion of your community, I feel like if you have more than 3% of your community saying something, that's enough for you to say something. Because that's 3% of your community that's being like, yeah, hey, man, I feel like we're not being heard. We want this. And I think it would just behoove you to state then and there, once, it reached that portion of your community, a sizable portion of your community, be like, hey, I get what you guys are saying. This is what I'll do for you, or this is what I'm not going to do for you. And I just want you to know that's what's happening. That doesn't have to be a full video, right? It does not have to be full video. That could just be a short, a community post, something, though. Like, it's just something. Yeah. That was a long one. That was a long-winded one. And we somehow almost talked the whole 30 minutes, which is cool. Looks like I was kind of passionate about that communication. So I appreciate that. Thank you, self. But yeah, this page is in Patreon, so please go ahead and subscribe to our Patreon. Its price is pricey, so if you can't afford it, I understand that. It's like $9. It's that pricey because it's never gonna change, and we're constantly adding stuff. Right now, we're adding. You're seeing the book kind of become a book, and eventually the chapters are going to be released there, and they're only going to be there until I kind of make my own website. um, Alexis is going to start releasing her one shot. She's going to start doing her one shot. You guys are going to start seeing her one shot, but then the PDF slash readable version of the one shot that's like completed is going to be in Patreon. She's going to start making coloring books of the art that you guys like on shorts. That'll also be on Patreon. Yeah, all the paintings that you guys see like behind me, eventually once we have enough Patreon subscribers, I'm thinking once we have like at least 100 Patreon subscribers, that's when, because I don't want to sell any of my art. I think that's like ridiculous to sell your art. Not ridiculous, that kind of an oversimplification of my thought process. But for me personally, I don't think I am established enough. I don't think that I have credibility. I don't think that I'm like that good of an artist. I like my doodles. I like my paintings. I like my children's paintings. I'm not going to give any of their stuff away. But once we have like 100 subscribers or 100 Patreon people, I'm going to just start giving away. Because like that's like a 1% chance of like winning something, right? So like I'm going to start giving something away. I'll probably like pick the individual just so we don't like break the same illegal lottery rules that Mr. Beast is doing. Yeah, it won't be random. It'll be like a sweepstakes. You know, you go ahead and put your name in, and then I'll pick, you know, the individual. I'll have to look more into it. I don't want to do anything illegal, or you know, maybe we'll have to wait till I'm on my own website, so there could be like a. I think there is a free tier in Patreon, so maybe I'll do like a free and a non-free, and then everyone that's on Patreon will be able to, or we'll figure out like a lower end tier that's like $3 or something. I don't know, but I just wanted to be widely available. But you know, of course, also want to get somewhat paid for doing this. Of course, I want YouTube in the end to like pay me with the ad revenue. But also it does never hurts to have multiple streams of income. But running out of time, and for my children, be true to yourself and always pursue what you think is gonna make you happy. It's okay to have lulls. It's okay to have breaks. It's okay to break down. It's okay to be proud. Yeah, just be you. You know, be you, and do as much as you can to enjoy life. We have been to a few places out the country. I hope by the time you watch this that we've been to a few more places, but I want you guys to explore the world yourself. And I want you guys to figure out what is important to you. Because the American viewpoint is very skewed. It's, I don't want to say it's entitled, but it's a very luxurious viewpoint in the world. And I know I've only taken you guys to other countries with the same exact viewpoint because of being luxurious, because they're the safest and you guys are young. But once you guys start getting older, hopefully I've taken you to a few other places that will change your viewpoint in life. And I think that'll be the next topic, actually. Go over just like what changed my viewpoint, why I wanted to be more creative, and you know, like what led me to write, what led me to painting, what led me to just be a creative individual rather than what I'm accustomed to. I'm accustomed to the corporate lifestyle. I'm accustomed to working for the military, having that structure, that rule, that guideline, following everything to a T. That's what I'm accustomed to, and that's what I enjoy. But slowly as I get older, and you know, the more I see the world, the more I see you guys grow, the more I learn about technology, the more I learn about, you know, what is taking place in the next 10 to 20 years, the more I lean heavier on this. And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, by the time like this book is done, anyway, yeah. So this book is probably gonna take like 10 years. But by the time this book is done and we start book 2, I think the majority of the world is going to be pursuing more creative outlets. rather than what they're doing now, which is trying to survive. I think with everything that we're doing technologically and policy-wise in the United States, because I'm mainly on the United States because that's where we're gonna live, um, that your future outlook on working and like being in that environment of like what everyone else is doing now is just like having a job. I think that's gonna look drastically different, and we'll go more on that tomorrow. Um, and my thought process and what I've learned. But thanks for watching. Go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe. Follow our Patreon. And that's it. I love you guys. Stay so.